RFK Jr. becomes latest Trump official to launch podcast, wants to expose forces corrupting medicine.
I hope you'll join us in our mission to make America healthy again.
Podcasting, all the things in the world. The world was your oyster, and we had to go there. We're going to check in with the Trump administration and RFK Jr., who is the Secretary of Health and Human Services. So he has just made a big announcement that after all the research that he's done and all the reforms and studies they've conducted, they're going to be shifting major Oh, just kidding. He's launching a podcast. Just what we needed was more podcasts. And yes, I understand I'm hypocritical because my career has turned into mostly podcasting, but it's like I fear we may have enough podcasts. The market may be saturated enough, and we may actually not need new podcasts at this point. And especially, I can't say I'm a huge fan of the idea of government officials launching podcasts on the taxpayer dime. But I'm gonna present you with the details. I'm gonna show you his announcement video. Then I'll give you my take at the end. So here's the media headline. RFK Jr. becomes latest Trump official to launch podcast, wants to expose forces corrupting medicine. Here's the article. Make some room. Katie Miller and Dan Bongino. Robert F. Kennedy Jr. announced he is going to be the latest person from Trump world to have their own podcast, with the HHS Secretary sharing he'll be launching his own show soon in a video posted to X on Wednesday. The aptly titled Secretary Kennedy Podcast, couldn't come up with something more creative than that, will avoid politics, according to RFK Jr. He said his show will be focused on lifting the taboos around public health and finding the truth about medicines, especially when it is uncomfortable to do so. So, I'll hold off on my take here, and I'll just show you the clip that they dropped of the teaser of the podcast. Watch this.
For decades now, Americans have been told that we should trust the system, but our children are sicker, chronic diseases exploding, and the answers that we've been given aren't working. Many of us have come to the conclusion that government actually lies to us. I'm Robert F. Kennedy Jr., your HHS Secretary. This podcast is about telling the truth, especially when it's uncomfortable. I'm going to have fearless conversations with critical thinkers, including independent doctors, respected scientists, and leaders in medical innovation and research. I'm going to ask the questions and lift the taboos and expose the hypocrisy and the conflicts and the corruption. We're going to follow the evidence wherever it leads. And we're going to name the names of the forces that obstruct the path to public health. This isn't going to be about politics. It's about our families, it's about our children, and it's about confronting the spiritual malaise and embracing the truth. If we want a healthy nation, we have to confront the lies that have made us spiritually, morally, and physically sick. The time for half measures is now over. We're launching a new era of radical transparency in government here at HHS. I hope you'll join us in our mission to make America healthy again.
Guys, I'm just counting down the days. I don't know, man. Here I was waiting for GTA 6 to drop, but now I'm just waiting for the Secretary Kennedy podcast to drop. That is going to be lit. No, I mean, listen, nothing like a podcast to tell you how the government lies to you, brought to you by the government. I don't want to get into the whole, do you like RFK Jr. thing? Do you agree with his mission? I'm very skeptical of a lot of what he pushes and a lot of his arguments and narratives and claims. But to me, that doesn't really matter for the purposes of this story, which is essentially just focused on, do we need cabinet secretaries producing podcasts? And I'm going to humbly suggest that we do not. But first, just the final details from this story. His new show comes a little more than a year after he started his job as HHS Secretary under President Donald Trump. Kennedy has made a few big changes since then, including overhauling the childhood vaccine schedule recommended by the government and revamping the food pyramid. The Secretary's show will add to an increasingly crowded list of Trump-affiliated podcasts. Bongino recently returned to his show after quitting as the deputy director of the FBI, and the aforementioned Katie Miller, wife of Trump advisor Stephen Miller, has interviewed people like Elon Musk and House Speaker Mike Johnson on her podcast. Second Lady Usha Vance launched her own podcast a few weeks back as well. And going back to Trump's first term, Steve Bannon has his War Room program on Rumble. Former White House Press Secretary Sean Spicer has a podcast, and Anthony Scaramucci has a show too. Kennedy did not share a date for when his first episode will release. His video ended by saying the podcast is coming soon, and thank God that it is, because this what the world needs is more podcasts. So I'll say, like, there's a pretty big difference to me from Dan Bongino, like, resuming his podcast after leaving government and him doing it while deputy FBI director. That would have been more comparable to what RFK is doing here. And I'm fine with Dan Bongino, the same way I'd be fine with RFK launching a podcast after he leaves office. I'm fine with that. No objections here. But it's like, shouldn't you be a little busier? Hot take, I know, but you're running these massive federal agencies that are literally doing thousands of possible things you could be focused on, all of which are hugely consequential. In the case of HHS, they're literally matters of life and death. And you're going to be carving out time in your schedule to be a podcast bro. Call me crazy, but I feel like you should be too busy for that as a cabinet secretary. And if you're not, I have bigger questions, actually, than about the podcast. And I mean, you have a huge agency to run. These agencies, people don't realize how big they are, but they are quite, I mean, they're quite, in many cases, bigger than massive companies. It's like you're the CEO of a massive company, and you should be focused on that. That should be taking up your time. And then I have a problem in terms of just the strange expenditure of using taxpayer dollars to produce, set up, distribute, and potentially market this kind of thing. I mean, I guess we don't have the details yet for RFK, but like they spent so many millions of dollars promoting Kristi Noem and her ads and everything, and it can get very wasteful fast. And so obviously we'll have to see. Maybe they'll do it in like a super efficient, budget friendly way. But regardless, I'm just not sure it's a legitimate use of taxpayer dollars, podcasting, as a cabinet secretary. And you already have a huge platform. So it's like, what is the need for these like long form conversations with random, experts you want to talk to or what have you? Why does it require a podcast? If you have new findings or information, you can already just film and upload a YouTube video or release a statement or tweets or anything. Like, anything RFK wants to get out there, he already can with any kind of multimedia or text-based statement, and immediately every media outlet will consider picking it up and it will be widely distributed on social media. It's like, so it's not like you need some outlet and you have no way of getting a message out right now. You already have a huge platform. So why are you launching a podcast? Like, and then what happens when he leaves office? Somebody raised that point to me on X as well, and I thought that was a good one. Does he get to keep the podcast feed? And everything transfers to him, and then he can just profit off of it after millions of dollars of taxpayer money were used to promote it and grow it and expose it to people, and official government accounts were, because that seems shady and potentially actually legally sus. But also, it's not like somebody else could really use it. It's not like the podcast feed just switches to the next Democrat HHS secretary. That's not going to work if audiences are signed up for RFK and then they get a Democrat appointee dropping podcasts when it changes over on the same feed. That's not going to work. So I don't know. Maybe it'll just be archived and it will just be never to be recovered. And then I'm going to say something, and y'all are going to have to not get mad at me for saying it because it's the truth. And I get it's like offensive or insensitive or whatever. RFK does not have a voice for podcasting. I'm sorry. Don't shoot the messenger. I'm not belittling the man because he has like a condition or disability or whatever it may be, but because he does in fact have a rather challenging voice because of the medical condition that he has. I'm not insulting him because of it. I'm not saying it makes him unqualified to do the job or anything else. But like specifically podcasting, might not be the move for you. Just because it's such a audio-based medium and people will be listening to you in their ears in the same way that, like, they're like, "Oh, that's ableist. That's, you're being discriminatory towards disabled people." No, I'm just acknowledging reality. Being ableist or discriminatory towards disabled people is when you suggest that it in any way decreases from their humanity or their legitimacy or importance, which I absolutely don't, or when you hold it against them in ways that are, like, totally illegitimate and irrational. But, for example, like if you're not going to hire someone in a wheelchair to work at a job where it doesn't matter or affect the job that they're in a wheelchair. But like, obviously, if I have a job or you have to do something and then your disability is directly not that thing, like contradicts your ability to do that thing, it's not ableist to say that then you shouldn't be doing that job. It's just reality. And I think even most people with a disability would understand that. And in this case, RFK, podcasting, really all the things in the world. The world was your oyster, and we had to go there. Don't shoot the messenger. I had to say it. I had to say it.